Well, I tell you what, we'll go ahead and get going here. Again, my name is Bill Newhauser. I'm a registered engineer here in Minnesota and North Dakota. I've been in the reseller realm since about 2005. I took about a 3-year hiatus and went back into the consulting side of life. Did some work up in Alaska, did some drone work up there, mapping some cities we could actually literally see Russia from, but it was interesting. But I'm back here on the saddle, and today we're going to talk about survey points. And way back when I did a couple AU presentations back in 2007, 8, somewhere back in there at AU, talking pretty much about this, so we decided to let's hit upon it again here. I think it's been a while, and you know, our experience at ATG is we get to see a lot of templates from a lot of different companies and have a lot of different ways of doing things here, and some cool stuff and some complicated stuff and so forth. And so I'm going to try to simplify things here. So here who I am. I'm a senior civil technical specialist here. There's my email address. If you guys want to take that note down, I'll have it at the very end of the presentation too. So if you guys want to contact me, get more information on this or so forth, you'd be more than welcome to. So what we're going to talk about today here, advanced survey point coding for Civil 3D. So Civil 3D point codes goes beyond the description keys and includes line work coding and other features. Data. In this webinar, we'll go out of the box options in CDC Tools, which can make life easier to process surveys and correct field coding errors. Our learning objectives here is develop a field code standards, applying those descriptions, features, and line work coding standards in Civil 3D, utilizing survey database, and we'll talk about the CDC tools that we offer that can help on this. I mean, it can make life a little easier if you're doing a lot of this. We got a couple tools that make life really simple. And so our agenda here again, developing field code standards, applying those descriptions, features, and line work code standards in Civil 3D. We'll talk about point styles, label styles, civil point groups, utilizing survey database and CDC tools to correct the coding errors. Now, we do have the question and answers turned on up here. I'm going to try to hold off till the very end so I don't get too distracted here, and then we'll see how much time we got to try to answer those. But again, you've got my email address. If you guys want to email me and ask more questions there, that too, be more than happy to. This is being recorded. We will have it on the website. I think we'll have it on LinkedIn and stuff too, so you can have access to it again. So let's go ahead here, continue on. Developing field codes. Now, what this is what your surveyors out in the field, what they're going to type in to describe whatever it is they're looking at, they're standing on, they're taking a shot on. Okay. Now we can do this in 3 different. I call it 3 different methods here: alphanumerical or both, kind of a hybrid method. And keep in mind here, you want to keep this simple. Okay, that's the biggest thing about all this. I want this process to be as simple as possible, and I want it to be as simple as possible all the way across the board, not just for the surveyors, but also your CAD operators. Okay, now everybody in here is probably a CAD manager or some kind of manager. You guys are way up on top of the pyramid, right? Okay, we're not talking so much about you guys. We're talking about the people that are down at the bottom of the pyramid, the people that are collecting all this data, the people that are processing this data. My method I'm going to show you guys here, I'm trying to make this as simple as I possibly can for those kind of people that do this on a daily basis. I've seen a lot of really cool and unique ways that people have done this, which is good and great for the people at the top of the pyramid, the people that have those complex minds like all of you guys do. They can figure this stuff out, probably have a really cool, it just works and blah, 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 but the problem is a lot of the people down below you on that pyramid, it might be too complex for them, so I want to keep it simple. And that's what I'm going to try to do here. I'm going to try to keep this as simple as possible and efficient and do exactly what we want it to do. So again, first step is developing this list. Now, most of you, Civil 3 is mature enough, you probably already have this list. It's either going to be alpha or numerical, probably most of you probably alpha, but I talk about the numerical side because I've been out in the field, and believe me, it's way easier for that field person to enter in 13, 14, 15, 18, 22 than it is to type in back a curve, flow line, top nut hydrant, blah, blah, blah on the data collector. We've all seen those data collectors. We've all seen how hard it is to type stuff in. Yes, you can get that set up in a lot of the Trimbles and the Topcons where you can have the kind of the codes pre-fed. So you kind of have to go to the category. I'm in a road. Here's all my road type shots. Okay, that's great. Okay, if you got that working for you, fantastic. Then the alpha list is probably for you. On the numerical list, one thing I like to do though is I like to have the numerical with some alpha at the end, and my alpha is designated for my line work, which we'll talk about in a little bit here. And so it's an easy way to kind of separate between what was intended as just a shot or it was intended to be line work. Again, trying to make this simple so stuff for error correction, things to pop up, slap you in the face so it's easy to find. So again, so alpha is going to be stuff like this: back a curve, flow line, center line, power poles, gate valves, etc. Numerical can be as simple as 13, 14, 15, group things by numerical. So all my teens are my road items, all my 20s are my utilities, all my 30s, etc. And the nice thing about that is if you're out in the field and you type in a 41 instead of 14, and maybe 41 is supposed to be back a curb or and 41 is a tree. Well, I can guarantee you it's going to slap you in the face when you import that topo and you have a tree sitting in the middle of your curb. You go, whoops, something's not right here. And that's when you go out and look at it. Oh, yeah, because they reversed it. If they typed in a 14, it would have been back a curb. Okay. And again, the hybrid, we're using a little bit of both. Okay. And again, this is totally up to you guys and how you guys want to do this. Line work. Okay. The line work here, this is going to be stuff here, as you see over in the drawing here, this is going to be like your center line, your back of curb, your flow line, your utility lines, sidewalk, property lines, maybe even your underground utilities, okay? With a little fancy footwork, we can connect the dots on that, okay? So you see here, for sure, it's going to be curb shots, sidewalks, center lines, maybe utilities, sanitary storm, fiber optics, that type of thing. With a little work, we can do these extra things here: property lines, culverts, building footprints. Don't see that too much anymore, building footprints, mostly because we have such easy access to aerial photos. We can usually get that stuff off the aerials. Okay, so it's not that big a thing. Now the line work code set, we'll jump into this too a little bit here. This is what you type in to activate the lines. So what triggers the line work? Okay, so if you type in BOC1 space B, okay, this is what, let me page down through this. So back of curb 1 space B, B tells me to begin the line, okay? If it was a C, it would mean continue the line, which is not necessary anymore. This reverts back to probably the line desktop days, okay? So it's there, probably ignore it, you don't have to worry about it. So if you're, excuse me here. If you're going along, 500 feet of curb and you got shots every 50 feet, obviously you don't have to type in C every single time on those intermittent shots, okay? The B is to start. Now the important part about this is that if we do a typical survey where you're shooting one side, jumping to the other side and back and forth, then you can start adding numbers to these because you want to continuously run a back of curb 1 on the right side. On the left side, you want to continuously run a back of curb 2 and a flow line 2, etc. So I believe we can run up to 9 of these concurrently at the same time. I believe I haven't never had a reason to run more than 4 or 5, but I believe 9 is the magic number. Now farther down here, if you typed in BOC space E for end, that would end that line. Okay. Now that is also not necessary because the software is smart enough that if all of a sudden I jump across the intersection and I restart up back of curb 1, but I type in a space B, the software is smart enough to realize, oh, I got to end that last one and start a new one. Okay. The other ones that are necessary is if you want to do curbs. So if you come to a curb return, okay, and an intersection, you have to hit back of curb or BC, so BOC1 space BC. Now, every shot on that curb, you have to do no C, okay, on the intermediate ones, okay? When you get to the end of that curb, you can do an EC, okay, that will stop it. That will stop the curb. Now, if I take another shot on the back of curb 1, past the EC, it's going to connect that with a tangent line, okay, a straight line. It won't continue to curve through there. So now this list of figures here, this is another area, and we'll talk about this where this is at, but this is a sub list of your description keys. Okay, so let's say your description keys is 100 items, 150 items. Okay, this might be 10 or 15, if even that. Okay. The trick there, though, is that the code you see here, the name, has to match in a code on your description keys. So if you have a back of curb in your description keys, you can have a back of curb here, a BOC, a FO alpha flow line, or FL, however you want to call it. But you gotta have one in the description keys in order for it to work here. Okay. Now we'll talk about this a little bit here. The things you can set up, the layers that goes on, the styles that's being applied, and so forth. So here, some different examples here. So now for all this to work, we've got to do this within the survey database. Okay, so if you haven't been using the survey database, look up and see how you can get it running on your network. It's not really that big a deal. You'll right click up here and say set working folder, put that working folder out on your network in a certain place, because this is different than your project folders, right? Your project files, your drawing files. Okay, it may kind of mimic it and look the same, but this is the database. So you got to do that kind of work all within the survey database. Now we won't get into here on how to set this up, but again, it's just right click and so forth. Now what you're seeing here are different projects I have set up in here, and then in this case for the webinar, we got what they call the import events, and then anything that comes in on the import events. Okay, and we'll jump into that here. So you must use this process to get the line work to import into your drawing. Makes it easy to share surveys with other drawings. That's one of the big benefits. And it's real easy to re-import files. Okay, so if you find you have a typo in something, so you go through the processor, you bring the points in the drawing, and you got one point that's out of whack, wrong description, or typo, instead of BOC is BTC or whatever. Okay, it's not working right. Well, you can go back to the text file, make the correction, and you come back through here and re-import it with literally 15, 20 seconds to do that. And I'll show that here too coming up. Last but not least here, we will cover point groups. Okay, I know a lot of you really advanced love point groups, and I've seen a lot of people use point groups instead of description keys, or maybe in concert with them, which is great. Okay, you got them working, and they're doing what you want to do. Fantastic. The only problem I have, and I'll show you guys a little bit what I'm talking about, is it's kind of twofold. One, it starts adding complexity. Okay, to do something simple, it's getting pretty complex. Yes, you could do maybe a little bit more, but not a whole lot with point groups. So I'm going to show you guys here a little bit on making static point groups and dynamic point groups, and I'll try to show you what the downfalls in that is. So, but easy way to temporarily change the way the points look. You can group like items, roads, utilities, controls, real easy group description keys. So all of my road description keys can be grouped into one point group. An easy way to turn off all my points. You can see here, I have one here, it's called off. And essentially, if I put that at the top of the list, boom, all my points are turned off. Okay, I don't have to freeze thaw or change anything. I just, boom, they're all turned off. Okay, necessary step to exporting points to an ASCII file. You'll see here I have a point group called export. Okay, this is just set up to grab all the points in the drawing. If I want to turn on and export everything out as an ASCII file, okay, I have to have that as part of the process. So that's just a dynamic point group. A way to keep track of your import events of files. Now, if you bring in points the old way, which is not through the survey database, okay, in that process, we all know that it asks you to add them to a point group if you want to. Well, that's where you'd give it a specific name. I like to always give it the file name and the date of the import. And then when I come through here, I'll add to that point group. So that event has its own point group. It makes it a little easier to manipulate. Okay. And last year, we'll cover is the CDC Tools. Okay, I'll show you here. We got in the one package we've got like 3 or 4 that are really towards the survey template manager. So they export to survey description keys and export to figure databases and make it a little easier to edit. And I'll show you that. Okay, so how to manage edit description keys, easy way to edit an existing description key list, easy way to edit the code. And we all like the word easy, right? Okay, easy way to create layers and styles on the fly, which you can't do very easily inside of the description keys. Now, easier method to edit and figure predicts database. And then last but not least here, let's live on the edge here and let's jump into the demo here. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this out. Bear with me here for a sec. I'm gonna bring over my Civil 3D up here. Bring it over to this correct window here. And I can leave the other stuff over here. Okay, so what I've got here is a simple survey that I did. Everything you see here was automatically created. Okay, I didn't have to do any, I shouldn't say that. I had to create the thing originally and then export the points out and then turn on and re-import them here for the demo. But this has all been created right straight off an ASCII file. Okay, nothing special in an ASCII file, but what you see is what you get. Okay, you'll notice here, I've got a lot of different things going on here. I know a lot of companies, when they bring in points, all the points look exactly the same. They're all point number, elevation, description, point number, elevation, description, okay? Which is okay. I mean, everything's there, but you know, there's a couple different things we have to think about here, okay? The people that are bringing this stuff in, usually the first thing they got to do is they got to create a topo drawing for the engineers, okay, or for the surveyors. They got to turn on and make this look pretty. They got to go in here and dress this up so it's going to be usable in our design process later. So we're going to have our line work in here. We're going to have our back curb, our flow line, our sidewalk edges, our property lines, etc. Okay, we're going to have all of our symbols turned on. We're going to have our manhole symbols, our power poles, our, you know, all the stuff we can stumble over and break a foot over, right? Okay, that's all going to have to be turned on. But as far as our points are concerned, okay, not all of them are going to be turned on for the topo. Typically speaking, we turn off everything except for our symbols, correct? Okay, our benchmarks, yeah, we might want the benchmark information. What's one of the first things we do in benchmarks? We go out and painstakingly create a label and drop in all the benchmark information in there and make a little table or something, right? Okay, well, in here, I'm bringing this stuff in and I'm trying to make this so it's actually legible, easy to read. And so you'll see my existing ground shots, okay? All they are is elevation only, okay? My back of curb and flow line, not only are they coming in with just elevation description, but I've got them rotated 45 out to help me read them, because if I don't do that, I'm gonna have text on top of text, okay? My manhole here, again, it's just elevation description. That's one where maybe I could turn on the point number. Okay, that's fine, you know, either way. My benchmark, okay, I've got this dressed up with a lot more text. Okay, point number equals such and such, because that's usually important to us. What's the northing easting? What's the elevation? The benchmark elevation, you know, what was it on the piece of paper we got off of the website? Okay, so we're 100th off, okay, whatever, but it's all right here. We don't have to really do anything. Now we can grip on this and drag it around and make it look a little more prettier. But again, everything you see here was done with that. Now, let me show you here. So let's go over here into our settings tab, and I'm going to start explaining here how description keys are working here. Okay, so here we have a code list here, and the code here, this is what surveyors type out in the field. Okay, the style, this is actually the point style. This is how the point, the marker slash is going to look. The label style is what I was talking about there, how we get the different label styles being applied here on the fly. The format, this is what we actually see in Civil 3D, okay? This is what makes the numerical method possible, because the code over here could be 1, but over here it could be, you know, $1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, and extracting all the information, because if they type down in the field, you know, 1 space, top nut height of hydrant on 2nd Street and 3rd Street, blah, 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 okay, that would all come up over here in the format, so I actually read it, okay? Or if they typed in a 13 and 13 was a centerline shot, okay? Over here, it would actually say, it would say centerline, okay? The $0, we'll talk about these here in a little bit here. These are some wildcards that will extract data from the code, okay? The one thing to remember here is the $0, that is always the original code, so CL. $1 is what it's ever after the first space. $2, the second space, third space, fourth space, etc. You can have up to an infinite amount of those if you want, okay? And this is important to bring up because one little thing you got to make sure that your surveyors are doing is when they're typing in those extra descriptions, okay, is to try to use either like an underscore or a minus sign. So B minus sign, the minus sign, benchmark, whatever. Try to do that across the, instead of doing spaces, because the spaces, as far as Civil 3D concerns, they think that's that is another batch of information. So it's gonna parse it out. Okay. So like here, manhole. So if they type in manhole space and some information about the manhole, that's where the $1 comes into place. Okay. Now let's quickly just go over here and look real quick here. I'm going to try to bring up the help menu here. And there's a great help menu here, kind of talking about these wildcards. And I'd like to bring this up to you because this is can be really nice. I mean, you can really simplify your list of codes here if you start adding wildcards in here. And here they have a really good example. This is coming right off the help. If you hit F1 and do a search for description keys, this is in there somewhere, okay? But so if they type in out in field tree space oak space 7, okay? The code, okay, that the format here, so this format tab you see right here, if it was this right here, okay, what's going to happen is they're going to get $2, which is a 7, so 7-inch oak tree is what you'd see. Now down here, they give some examples here in all the different types of codes and what would happen on the results, okay? Another code I use a lot of is this $asterisk, or yeah, $asterisk. This essentially just returns whatever they typed down in the field, regardless of the spacings, the minus signs, or whatever. That's what we're going to see in Civil 3D. Okay, again, that's all in here. Okay, now this is a part here that next part I want to talk about here is the real critical part. This is hopefully the light bulb moment for all of you that hasn't seen this before. And let's talk a little AutoCAD here first before I get into this. Okay, I'm jumping into the layer column here and the layering within the points and how they work and how we can easily manipulate them. Okay, let's go back to our AutoCAD, basic AutoCAD days here. And let's say we got a manhole detail. And that manhole detail, we have a whole bunch of components. Okay, we got lines, we've got text, we got dimensions, we got hatches, we got maybe big text, little text, whatever. But we got a lot of components in there embedded in that manhole detail. Now, each one of those components probably has its own specific layer. Maybe you got detail layers by color, by line weight, or whatever, but you're going to have a bunch of different 4 or 5 component layers for your details, okay? So let's take that manhole detail. We got 3 options here. When we insert that manhole detail as a block in our drawing, we can either put on layer 0, layer A, or layer B, okay? If we put on layer 0, now the only way we can turn that block off is to turn off all those component layers. Not just one, not just 2, but all of them. Okay, so we got to figure out where they are, turn them all off. The problem with that, if we turn all of them off, we're also turning off all the other blocks that may be using those same component layers, okay? So good or bad, probably don't want that to happen. If we put on layer A, let's call this a group layer, okay? So if I stick all of my manhole details, my utility manhole storm sewer details, all on one layer, layer A, now if I freeze layer A, I'm freezing just that group of details. I'm not touching my signs, I'm not touching my typical sections, whatever, just those manholes, okay? The third one is a unique layer, okay? Layer, they call it layer B. Layer B is being unique in that we can create a layer just for that particular detail, storm hole, manhole detail number 5A, whatever, okay? So we have a layer just for that. So we get those 3 options, okay? Points are very similar. okay? Points in here, these are Civil 3D objects, like anything else, profile views, section views, whatever. Just the points is very simple. It has two components. The components we have in here, we have the marker component, and we have the text component here, okay? So let's go back and look here. This layer column here, this controls, this is our layer A, okay? This is the layer that the whole point is going on to. Regardless to anything else, the whole layer, that whole point, those two components are going on that particular layer. Now you'll notice here, I add in a little extra here. I put it, it's either a symbol layer or a marker layer. Okay, so think about that for a sec. Our descriptions, our points that we're shooting out here, we have two types. We either have ground shots, e.g., flow line, back of curb, sidewalk, the string line type things that are just an elevation, that they're not something like a manhole, power pole. They're not being represented by a symbol, okay? Then we have our symbol layers. We got our power poles, our manholes, our hydrants, etc. Now those are being represented by actual symbols. So what I'm doing here is I'm making a layer here for everything with symbols, which is like benchmarks, okay? Storm sewer manholes, power poles, and I'm making the layers here for the marker stuff, okay? So back of curb, center line, you know, flow line, etc. They have their own layer. Okay, now the problem is here is we still have the component layers. Okay, what controls the component layers? That is controlled in here in the style. So if I come over here and I click on my style here for benchmarks, and I do an edit. Now, if I go to the marker tab, we all know this is controlled. What am I going to see? Okay, in this case, it's a symbol, so it's going to be a benchmark symbol here, as you can see here, and we're controlling it up here to use drawing scale, and so our plotted size is 0.05 inches. Okay, now this you're at the mercy of the actual block and how it was actually created. We all know that. Okay, so there might be some editing to do on the blocks when you start getting into here, but for the time being here, 0.05 seems to be pretty good, pretty good size. If I go to 0.1, they start getting really big. Okay, so I like 0.05 myself. Now the display tab, this is the heart, this is the meat. Okay, this is telling me the components. Okay, well, I'm in plan view. My marker is going on a symbol layer. My label is going on a text layer. Okay, and you notice I'm grouping them. So in this case, a benchmark has two layers assigned to it, a benchmark and a text layer, you know, a benchmark symbol and a benchmark text layer, okay? And if I kick out of here and I go down here and look at, like, say, my centerline shot, this one here, the marker is just a simple marker, circle the X through it, okay? Pretty standardized, again, 0.05, okay? The display column, though, on this one is marker, is going to the, you know, the marker is going to marker layer, text is going to text layer. The key here is making sure this layer and this layer are the same, okay? And you'll see why here in a second here. So if I kick out of here, go back to my drawing here, kick all the way out. So if I do the old-fashioned layer isolate command, so layer LAY ice O, and I pick on, I don't know, let's say my back of curb. Now you notice I'm picking on the text. I don't have to pick on the actual marker. I'll pick on the text. When I do that, boom, all I'm seeing here is just all my back of curb shots. Yeah, I don't see the elevation description. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, I can go back and turn that on manually if I wanted to. But the idea is, all I'm seeing is all the dots. And usually, what's that? The next step for the operator, that's probably when I'm going to come through here and connect the dots, right? Maybe I'm doing break lines for surface or whatever, but bingo, they're isolated. I'm off and running. We're good to go. Okay. Now, I can do that with any of these. So if I do another layer ISO and I pick on, I don't know, my manhole. Okay, boom, I'm seeing just a symbol. Now see this time, it's a symbol. So I'm just seeing the symbols. Okay, so again, go back. So again, that is working because I have the layers set up in here and I have the layers set up in here. Now, a little tidbit here. In order for that to actually work, because I know a lot of people will turn around and inside of here, set the layer here to be some specific layer for all their labels, all their point layers. Well, that's good and great, but that means everything, all description keys using this particular label style is going to go on that particular layer, which I may or may not want. Okay, which I probably don't want. I don't want to turn off that one, my layer for my surfaces, or for my existing ground, you know, my text, and all of a sudden everything turns off on the whole drawing. You know, I want to just do it to one, not all of them at the same time. And so this, because, you know, obviously we're going to apply this label style to many description keys. Okay, so only thing I want that thing doing is affecting what labels are turned on, what's visible. You know, if I go in here and look at my benchmarks, you'll see I've got this special one here set up to where this is one where it's set up in doing northing easting elevation, you know. And if you go in here and actually look at it, drag this over here, this is what it's coming up as. So these are the actual components I'm turning on, and I've added in some manual text here to dress this up. So this is totally up to you how you want this to look, you know. But again, I've got that power. And again, this is all set to layer 0. That's the big thing here too. We all know in here too, this plan readability, this is totally up to you if you want to turn that off and on. Okay, but that's where that's at too. So anyway, continue on here. Now the next step to this here is when I get in here, okay, so we got the code, this is what we typed in the field, the style, this controls the layering, and what are we seeing? Are we seeing a symbol or are we seeing a marker? It's either one or the other, but not both. The label style, okay, this is how we're controlling, you know, you see here, my flow lines are rotated 45. You know, my back of curbs are a normal 90 or probably a 0 rotation. These are rotated 90 or 45 up actually, okay? And then I got the format tab. You see the different codings I'm using here. And then over here, we got the layer tab. Now, farther over, if you want to get really creative and really start adding some flash to your imports, is that we have here, get it back open here. We have here the scale parameters, and we also have the marker rotation parameters, okay? Scale parameters, where I've used this one at is like trees, okay? The surveyors will type in, you know, a 12-inch tree, 24-inch tree, 36-inch tree, etc. Okay, or maybe what else could it be? Like, you know, maybe culverts or something like that. But this trees are nice because it's nice to showing how big that tree is. It's less than 12-inch, and we don't, you know, it's easier to get rid of a less than 12-inch tree than it is a bigger than 12-inch, right? So the parameter 1 here, the way this works here is that, so if they're out in the field and they type in 12, or excuse me, tree space 12 space oak, okay? So that's a 12-inch oak tree. Well, if they turn this on to parameter number 1, and then they say over here, apply to the X and Y, okay? And they can then turn around, when that gets imported in and it imports the 12-inch tree, it's gonna come in with a diameter of 12, okay? If it's a 24-inch tree, it's gonna come up twice that size. Now, how do you control that? You know, careful. We all know architects love showing the outer reaches of the tree, these big, huge things. Okay, civils, we kind of like to show the smaller. We like to show the stump. You know, what's left over after we cut it off, right? Okay, so that might determine here on how we do we might have to do a scale factor, and that's because your internal block, how was it originally drawn? Okay, and that might take some playing with to get that working right. But once it's working right, it's golden. Okay, and so again, that's how the scale parameter works. Now, if you click on this, you can do more than just parameter number 1. You get, remember, up to set up to nine of these parameters. Okay, so you can pick after which space you want to control the scale. Same thing over here on rotation. Marker rotation, this also comes in here, and this is where we can rotate things. So to me, I've used this a lot on culverts, on their flared in sections, and I've used it a lot on signs. Which direction is that sign actually facing? That's something that's kind of nice. Same way, we just go in here, plug in which parameter are we using. So if it was a sign, space, stop, space, 90, okay? So parameter number 2 would be the one picked. And then we tell it here how we're gonna rotate. And I believe they can either rotate left or right here at the same time. Well, yeah, counterclockwise or clockwise. The key on this one is to know The rotation is based off of AutoCAD's 0 rotation, which is due east. North is 90, west is 180, south is 270, etc. Okay, so you got to remember that. But it's either you want to go counterclockwise or clockwise. It defaults to counter. Okay. So let's back over here now. Let's see what time, how we can do it on time here. We're doing good. Okay, so next, that's the description keys. Again, to reiterate, the point style. You know, when you get in there, that's where you set your layers, and make sure those layers are matching up with what we have here. So I will usually come in here and make a whole bunch of these layers ahead of time. I'm going to show you in a little bit here in CDC Tools how we can do that. You know, fairly easy. Now let's jump over here to the survey tab here. Okay, what we've got in here, we've got an event that I brought in, but down here we have here the equipment database, not that big of a deal, but the line work code sets and the figure prefix database. Let's look at this real quick here. This won't affect too many people, but this is if, let's say you get survey data from somebody else, maybe the DOT. Okay, the DOT is using GeoPack, okay, or maybe someone's still using Eagle Point, or or whatever. But their line work start and stops might be coded differently. Okay, if I was to come up here and make myself a new one here, so I copy what's there. Okay, now you'll notice here I can come in here and change these. So if I want this to be a dot and a dot dot, or whatever the coding is, I can change the coding here. Same with down here. All this stuff now is totally editable. Okay, so we probably won't do this much, but if you need to, this is where you do it. Okay, up here the figure prefix database. Now this is what we're using to determine if it's going to be line work, and then where's that stuff going? What layers are going on to? Like here, this should be actually, I think I have a flow line, FOL. Okay, so that's the layer it's going to go on to. Can it be a break line or not? Toggle that on, and I'll show you in a little bit if we get time how that's kind of cool. It does some extra stuff here. And then what style? Now, the downside in here is that you can't create layers, you can't create styles, you can't create anything in here. So if it's not on the list, I've got to leave, go out and find it and make it on the list. Now, where do I find this at? If I kick out of here, I go to my settings tab, and I go down here to my survey figures. So here's my figure styles. So I'd have to come in here, create those figure styles, and then go back to the survey tab, go back in here and use them. Okay. So let's go out here now. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove this from the drawing here. And so that's just this line work event that I have up here. And all I'm going to do is right click and remove from drawing and say yes. And poof, it's all gone. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to import that in now. So I'm going to, even though I got that event in there, I'm going to bring it in again. So we go up here to, where's it at here? Insert, import, survey data. And opens over the other screen here. Okay, I'm going to make myself a new survey database. And I'm going to call this webinar 2 for simplicity's sake. I'll keep it lowercase, that's fine. Okay, one little trick here, and this is a I'm going to call it a design flaw or bug on the Autodesk side, and we've talked to them, told them about this for years, and they still haven't fixed it. But when I do this, first thing you need to do is go in here to edit survey database, change this right here from international foot to US feet. Okay, everything else here I can take what you see, that's fine. Okay, but that I need to change. So now it's active. I'll hit next. Okay, what am I going to bring in here? You can see here we got the different options: field book, line XML file, point file, or points from the drawing. We'll go to point file. I'll click plus, call line work, and this is point number, northing, easting, elevation, description. And you'll see it gives you a little sample down here. I'll click OK. Take the defaults here, OK. And the one thing here, this always defaults off, FYI. Make sure you toggle on that, and then toggle on this, and then pick on which prefix database you wanted to use. Okay, once you set this, you shouldn't have to change it again. But the first time you come in here, I'm just staying with sample because we're using the stock settings here. And I'll click finish. And there you go. Okay, and I didn't do anything else. Okay, all the lines are in here. I even have curves in here. Okay, now let me show you something here too. If I go over here, I've got a surface already created. I did it with the other data, so it's going to be interesting here. Oh, I put it on the layer. Just a minute here. I got to find the layer. I don't remember what layer it went on to. Probably right there. Okay, so you'll notice here, if I turn around and create a layer from all this, this is what you're going to get, box stock here. But now, if I turn around and go into here, and I tell it to add break lines, and I click add, and I'll just call these features. Take the defaults. I'm not going to do any weeding or anything else. And I'm going to window these right here. Okay, I don't care about, I don't need to do the electrical line. And something interesting. And it doesn't do it all the time. But you notice it threw in a couple vertices out here. Now, my fault in that I don't have a good sample here. My elevations are all 0 out here, so I can't cut a section through here to show you exactly what it looks like. But it is interesting that it added vertice on that object out here, some random point, but it didn't do it everywhere. It did one up here, but it didn't do any over here or any over here. So I'm not sure the rhyme or reason behind that. I'm sure there's some kind of weeding factor that's going on here, but just to let you know. So let me go and turn that off. Let me freeze that layer. Get back to where we were. Okay, so we're about 45 after here. Let me talk about point groups here real quick. So I go up here to point groups, and this is one of the biggest problems I have with point groups. Okay, I've just done some stuff here. I brought points in, blah, blah, blah. Notice all these exclamation points. Okay, if I was to right now do the point export command and expect it to export all these points out, I'm not going to get anything because I have an exclamation point here by the export. So anything that's not already on the list, if I had added some new points in there and they weren't in here previous to me doing some of this extra stuff that caused this rebuild command to pop up or the update command, I wouldn't get those points. So this forces the user to have to come in here and either pick on the individual ones, right click and say update, or come up to the point group here, right click and click update. Okay, so I call that semi-automatic. In that I got to pull the trigger again before it to automatically go through and update all this stuff. Now, if I was to go out and do an export of points, and I export out that export point group, yeah, then I'm going to get everything. Okay, good and great. But until you do that, you're not. And so that's one of the downfalls I'm finding here with point groups by using them over extensively is that you're constantly coming in here and telling it to update. Now, the reason for that is way back in the early days of Civil 3D, they had those automatically update for you. Well, the problem was every time you nudged or burped or rotated or did anything with a point, you always saw down below updating point groups, updating point groups, updating point groups. And it could take a minute, a half minute, 2 minutes to do, depending upon how many points you had in the drawing. It was a real annoying, to say the least, and not to say the least, we all complained about it. And so with all of complaining about it, they turned around and gave us this update command. The downside is they don't give us a update automatic option here, okay? Which is like what they do here on the surfaces, right? If I go in here, we have rebuild and rebuild automatic. Well, that's a toggle. We can do either one, but they don't do that up here. Why? I don't know, but hey, it is what it is. So if we create point groups here, I'll talk about this real quick here. We've got about 12 minutes. Is if I right click here and say new, we have the ability to create either what I call a static point group or a dynamic point group. Okay, a static point group is pretty simple. That's where I'm going to give it here a name. I'll call it static, and I say include and I'm going to include those points and those points only. Okay, no matter what I do from here on out, okay, there's no other criteria being applied here. It's just those 4 points that are whatever number of points I chose there, and that's it. That is now a static point group. Okay. If I come over here now and create a dynamic point group, oops, wrong button. If I come over here now and create a new one, and I call it dynamic, but this time I go to include and I say raw description matching back a curb, comma, flow line, and I put the asterisk in there just to make sure I get everything that has that in it. And now, so this is gonna be like all my road items, right? Now, here's all those. Now, the beautiful part about this is that if I want to, I can come over here, apply totally different point styles, come over to my overrides and tell them to use those, okay? And click OK, and boom, there they are. Okay, so it basically turned everything else off, or most of them at least, and applied a different point style to them. Okay, good and great. Well, I guess I didn't have much else in there. So you can see how they're looking totally different. Now, the beautiful part is that's temporary. Okay, if I come back here, right click, change the sort order, put that, say, at the very bottom, now they're back to where they were. So it's very non-intrusive now. So we're getting close here. We got 10 more minutes here. What I want to talk to you about now is I want to show you the CDC Tools. And remember when I was in here and I'm working on these description keys. So if I come here, description keys here, everything I do in here, it's kind of tedious. It's not really easy. It's almost sometimes like here, if I turn around and I say copy, it automatically sorts it. Now, if I got a list of 150, that baby just went alphabetical, and God knows where it's at. Well, it's under the C's. Well, I might be in the T's. So that means it way up the top of the list. I'm constantly trying to look for it, trying to find it. It's a real pain. It's not a fun process here to create and edit these. Okay, so the fun and easy way of doing this, I'm going to save here, is that I'm going to come up here to our Sim Manager Suite. Okay, now before I get in here, let's look here. We've got the Sim Manager Suite and you got Swim Project Suite. Now, if you go out to the website there, and you can download these off of our website, and you can activate them. I think you get like a 10-day trial period on them. And when you run them here and get them installed, you'll notice we got these light colored, like kind of a yellowish green, and we got the darker green. These are free. So even after the trial period is up, you still have access to them. Okay. Now, if you want a demo on all these, please, email us and we can set something up for your company, and we can give a real good demo on all these. There's a lot of stuff and a lot of really cool commands. Piping and the grading ones are just really good. The corridor ones, there's stuff in here that you can't even think about doing in Civil 3D, splitting up corridors, merging the corridors, etc. Okay, but we do have some point stuff in here. This point file converter. Okay, that's in the survey one here. You got a couple different survey features we can do, but now the one I'm going to talk about here is over in the Sim Manager. Now the Manager one, this is more geared towards the CAD managers. Okay, if they want to do some major management type stuff here, like working on these description keys, some other object stuff. We got some real cool ways of manipulating the object layers and so forth. Line type manager and so forth. That's all up in here. Again, here the light blue is free. Everything else is extra. Okay, so after the trial period. Now, what I'm going to talk about here real quick is the survey template manager and these 4 commands right here. Okay, so if you click on this button right here, and it can't get much easier, believe me. This pops up. It shows you the current 2 description keys that I have in here. I'm going to say export here. Pick a place, some place you can remember, like, so I'm going into my certain folder here. I'll click OK. Go ahead and overwrite. Yep, that's fine. It's going to run, and it's going to automatically open up Excel. So obviously you got to have Excel installed, okay? But it's going to open up Excel, and you're going to put you right into here. Now, going across the top, you see here, if I click on these, if there's something that has, oh, I picked on the wrong template here. Just a sec here, we back up. I was wondering why all of a sudden I got so many more description keys. I had them in the wrong order. Do it again. Okay, so if you go across here, okay, the codes here, we can type in additional codes. If I want to start adding in here, probably the easiest thing to do is take one of these, right click and say copy, and then insert copied cells. Now I've got all like ones here. So the first thing I'm gonna do is, I'm just for simplicity, I'm gonna make these like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Obviously, they can be whatever I want just for speed here. I'm just doing 1 through 6 here. Okay, so I've added 6 new description keys in here. Now, if you go to the point styles here, this is where you can come in here now and choose what point style you want in here. Okay, now I can come in here and create a new point style. And then I'd have to go back into Civil 3D and do the edits within Civil 3D. We can't dive into the styles from within here. It's more just the names we can pick on. So I can come in here and create a whole new one here, and then back in Civil 3D, go into that new one I just created, and then make my edits, my layers and so forth. Same thing with layers, okay? So if I needed a new layer here, so I'm gonna call this storm sewer, let's call it water, utility, water. And they're probably gonna be symbols. Okay, so I'm creating a new one here. And if I click on the down arrow, I can actually choose what's already in the drawing here, okay? Now that one I just created obviously is not gonna be in here yet, but I can now assign a different one as we go down through here. The formats, this is where I'd probably change the format to something else, obviously. The point styles, I'm gonna choose different point styles. Now, the block name here, I wouldn't worry about this because the point style is going to control what block name is going to pop up. So when you go back to do the edits in Civil 3D, that's where you'll assign the block names. But it's kind of giving you a reference here, telling you what's going to come up. This is a good place if I want to apply a different point style. You know, this is where I can do it right here on the fly. And all the other settings over here too. Okay, now once I'm done with this, I would save. Go ahead and leave if I want to. Come over here, create edit description keys, and now browse to that one we just created. And the matter of here is what do I want to do? I want to update the one that was in there and add to it and create new point label styles if I need to, okay? And now at this point here, just FYI, see this videos and support. Okay, if you're not really fully sure what this thing does, you can click on video. This will take you to their website and boom, bring you up a nice training video so you can know which way to go, okay? Support here, this directly, the direct email support line back to them too. I'll click OK here. And this will pop up and it's basically telling me, hey, you've added these and we're creating a new layer. How cool is that, right? It's giving you got 6 new codes. We didn't change any, so there's unchanged codes, so forth. And I'll go ahead and say, okay. Click OK. If I come back over here now, there is all my new ones. Hunky dory. Zip. Man, I wish I had this about 5-6 years ago or more. But I tell you, we're getting close in time here, about 3 minutes off. I hope this has helped you all. Let me look at the question and answers here. Someone here has got a question here, and I've not tested this out, so I can't really answer it. They're asking here, can the program create a smooth, continuous radius around a curve with multiple OC shots? From what I've seen, the program creates multiple curves around the radius when more than one OC shot is taken. And so my answer there, I can't tell you. I'd have to play with it. And that's a Civil 3D thing, so that's going to have to go back to Autodesk if they, you know, when you think about it, I don't know if it would be physically possible because it's going to have to be a best fit, a curve in there. And if you got 3 or 4 extra mid shots in there, it's probably just mathematically impossible to connect the dots. So what they're doing is probably the only feasible thing it can do. So even though it might look pretty, it might be beneficial maybe for your crew, just if they shoot multiple shots, only designate one of them as being on curve. Okay, maybe out in the midpoint if you want it to just to make things look pretty. Okay, and the key in that one, just make sure you don't use that as a break line, because if you use it for a break line, it's going to skip all those other intermediate shots, which is going to mess things up. Okay, so you know, nothing's perfect, right? So let me flip back here. One last thing here. I know we're running out of time here, but let's whoops. One last thing here is that in here, this here does exactly the same thing, except for it does it for the figure prefix database. Just like this, click yes, yes. Looks very similar, except for now you can do it for the figure prefix database. This is pretty handy because I know you can't create layers in the figure prefix database. You can't create anything new in the figure prefix database, whereas here you can. So this would be time saving all by itself too. I mean, believe me, the price of the software and these little 2 features alone, the time you're going to save, if you got 150 description keys and you got to go through and do all these edits, oh my God, I mean, you're going to spend hours upon hours doing this stuff, right? So if this can save that, cut that in half or a third, it just paid for itself. So let's go back here to the PowerPoint. I'm going to go ahead and finish up here if I can find my PowerPoint. So let's go back through here. If you want to, you can subscribe to our ATG social media sites, either on LinkedIn and or on YouTube, as you can see here. I'm going to give a thank you for your time. Thank you for your hour. Here's my email address down the bottom, BNEUHAUSER@ATG USA. Thank you very much. And again, if you have any more questions, I know we're running out of time, please send me an email. I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions here. If you guys want to dig deeper into this stuff too, let us know and we can go with that. Let me check here. I got someone here chatting here. And I got a Q&A, same one. So I think we're all good to go. But again, this is going to be recorded. And I got someone raising their hand. Nope, I don't see where it's popping up here. But anyway, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. And we will see you guys later.